Oh yeah, here it is. Reverse freedom rides, an echo of Martha's Vineyard migrants flights 60 years ago. Here it is. Tricked by segregationists with promises of work and housing, black families were dropped off in Cape Cod with nothing. Eliza Davis was bewildered the day she arrived in a wealthy tourist town in Cape Cod. An agricultural worker, she had been promised work and housing if she took a free trip to another state. Days later, disembarking with her 8 children, she had little idea where she was, that a president had a family compound down the road, or that she was a pawn, as locals told the New York Times, in a political stunt. Davis, 36, was not among the migrants who arrived on Wednesday on Martha's Vineyard, a resort island off Cape Cod where former President Barack Obama has a home. She was a black woman from Alabama, busted and abandoned in Hyannis, Massachusetts in 1962, not far from the holiday home of President John F. Kennedy. Today's migrants in Martha's Vineyard are now being transported to the same Cape Cod military base that housed the Reverse Freedom Riders decades ago. That's what it was called. It was part of the so-called Reverse Freedom Rides arranged by white segregationists in 1962 in retaliation for the Freedom Rides of the previous summer, when black and white volunteers rode buses through the South supporting desegregation. The plot was organized by white supremacist Citizens Council in Arkansas, who bought radio ads and made flyers advertising the opportunity to African Americans. They focused on recruiting men with criminal records and single mothers with a lot of children, cynically presuming white liberals would welcome them the least. Layla Mae Williams, an Arkansas woman who was also dropped off in Hyannis with her 9 youngest children, was dressed in her finest clothes because she had been told Kennedy himself was going to greet them when they arrived. According to the 2020 NPR report, she had packed little else because anything she needed was going to be provided, she was told. Along with the new arrivals, local Hyannis officials received anonymous letters, according to the Times, saying things like, Abe Lincoln sowed the seeds, and now the North can reap the harvest, and we have put up with millions of N-words for 100 years, so why should you squawk? It was a contrast to the Great Migration of the previous decades, during which white residents did everything they could to stop black workers from leaving. Families would often have to sneak to the train station under the cover of darkness or use other subterfuge to escape, described in detail by historian Isabel Wilkerson in her book, The Warmth of Other Suns, The Epic Story of America's Great Migration. Southern segregationist groups baldly deceived black families using tactics consciously parodying the Freedom Rides, noted Clive Webb, an American history professor at the University of Sussex, in 2004 paper on the Reverse Freedom Rides. They said they promised free transportation plus $5 for expenses to any Negro man or woman or family, no limit to size, who desire to migrate to the nation's capital or any city in the North of their choosing. Notices were also posted in prisons offering free transportation to prisoners whose sentences were set to expire. So what the white supremacists did back then was look for, optically speaking, look for the worst, they were racist as fuck. So they were like, here's what will look the worst. Here's what white liberals will say no to the most likely to say no to. Except that fucking fell on their face too. Why can't this just be done in reverse and all the hogs get shipped to Florida? Then we let Florida be its own country. Hey guys. I am on board with that. You already know that. Then, as in now in Cape Cod, many residents of Hyannis met the riders with open arms. A local committee formed to provide housing, clothing, and money for the new arrivals. Davis and at least 50 other, including 33 children, were housed in the dormitory of a nearby community college. Others were housed in private homes, and later, a nearby army barracks that was used until they could be placed with jobs and housing in the surrounding area. Those army barracks are being used again, for the record. Massachusetts Governor John Volpe condemned the rise as traffic in human misery. They're doing that again. The only way to meet such cruelty is by wisdom and love. Episcopal Bishop Anson Phelps Stokes Jr. told the Associated Press he urged the residents to show understanding and compassion. The welcome was not universal. When Massachusetts governor asked for federal help, the Kennedy administration declined. Kennedy called it a rather cheap exercise, but otherwise avoided the issue. Shouts out to the fucking Kennedy admin for that one, by the way. In New York, a few dozen black people arrived from Louisiana. City officials paid the bus fare for at least 6 to return to their home state, according to the Times. Some of the Southerners sent to Hyannis got jobs as cooks or chambermaids or in candle making factories, according to the 1964 column in the Boston Globe. When the summer ended, the jobs in Hyannis dried up. All but one family left. Victoria Bell, who appears in the photo at the top of the story, lived in Hyannis for the rest of her life, working as a nurse to the elderly and volunteering to help the poor, according to news clippings in the Barnstable Patriot. At least one of her children made the honor roll at school, and some still live in the area. Bell died in 2000. Remember, these were white supremacist segregationists that did this. Within a few years, Layla Mae Williams and her kids ended up in a Boston housing project where the family struggled without nearby relatives. One of her daughters told NPR's Code Solution 2020. Racist white neighbors resented their presence in public schools and harassed them. Reverse freedom rides ended up backfiring politically, Webb argued, because even moderate segregationists were put off by the cynical manipulation of poor African Americans. Remember, moderate segregationist was a term. Do you understand? We're talking, and like I said, like, moderate segregationist is just such a profoundly fucked up take, but it is the reality, because American history and American culture is guided by white supremacist fundamentals. Do you understand? But trapped within that reality is exactly what I'm saying. People who literally are like, I'm a moderate on segregation, were like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up what you did to those black folk. You get it? You understand? Do you see what I'm saying here? Because ultimately, even back then, people were like, I'm not racist. How dare you say that? Separate but equal. If people were to recognize their own inherent racist values, their own inherent white supremacist ideals, then there would be no need for, the whitewashing of American history. Do you understand? That's why they didn't say segregation is just straight segregation. They said it's separate but equal. Because conservative values unironically go against all of the better principles that people are taught to believe in, like sharing, turn the other cheek, okay? Treat others as though you would be treated yourself. Like, these are all values that we learn at an early age that are good, but they are always diametrically opposed to conservative principles like, steal, lie, cheat, who gives a fuck? Fuck everybody else. Fuck the taxes. Don't share. Be cruel to others that don't look like you. The cruelty is the purpose, because it is completely opposed to what it takes to be a good person. It is completely the opposite of what it takes to be a good fucking person, which is why people still otherwise consider themselves to be empathetic and kind and nice individuals. When they see someone getting duped like this, even then they're going to be like, this is fucked up. The scheme had never been condoned by the better thinking people here. New Orleans radio and television station WDSU denounced the campaign as sick sensationalism bordering on the moronic. A Gallup poll published in June 16, 1962 showed widespread disapproval of the council's tactics among white Southerners. In the end, only about 200 people were ever sent on the reverse freedom rides, far fewer than the thousands of migrants who have been transported north of D.C., New York, and now Massachusetts in the past few months. If you've ever heard conservatives talk about how nice they are, they oftentimes will talk about how much they give to their church and how much philanthropy they do, right? Why do those things matter? Those things matter to them. Ultimately, they do think that they're nice people. So when you very openly are like, nah, this is not nice, we're going to do like really horrible shit, even some conservatives are going to turn around and be like, wait a minute, okay, that's a little fucked up. Ah, yes, so much tax-free income for the church, so altruistic. Guys, I'm not saying it's a good thing. You're failing to comprehend what I mean. Do you understand? You are not seeing the larger, broader picture, and that is how people view themselves. Every person view themselves as a nice person from their own perspective, regardless of how fucking racist their attitudes might be. So when you see an immediate contradiction within how people fancy themselves and what their political representatives are doing on their behalf, some people are not going to like that. That is part of the reason why I am saying that this is one of those things that could potentially blow up in Ron DeSantis and Governor Greg Abbott's face. But there's still going to be plenty of conservatives that say, nah, fuck that. Okay? There's still going to be plenty of conservatives that look to this and go, nah, this is great. This is actually so good. We already saw an example of this when it comes to abortion, because white women get abortion too. Conservative white women get abortions as well. Nobody, no matter how much you think abortion is murder, you're not going to fucking sit there and be like, yeah, it's a good thing that a raped 12-year-old had to go over state lines to get a fucking abortion. Some Republicans wild the fuck out and champion that kind of attitude, but ultimately, the broader majority of Republican voters even are going to look at that and go, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. And for those of you who say that's not the case, look at the fucking polls. It certainly is the case. Look at Kansas. Doesn't matter how deep red that shit is, okay? You can say that they don't care and Trump supporters don't care. And you might know Trump supporters that don't care. But the broader majority of people that are otherwise not super politically motivated, that don't really look into this, but are just like repeating shit that they've learned from other people or, things that they've seen on a Fox News coverage, those people still have the capacity to turn around and be like, yeah, this is kind of fucked up, actually. You're not going to hear that on our hyper-partisan news cycle, but ultimately, plenty of people still fancy themselves to be good people. And they do see things like this as a misstep. They do see things like this as too far. You're not saying they're actually good people, just that they think they're good people. They're nice and good. It's basic human psychology. Exactly. And there are, no matter what happens, there are certain things that you do, right, that will trigger people. Like the inherent contradictions in the actions of political representatives will sometimes genuinely pose a threat. Will genuinely be so obvious, so apparent that even people that fancy themselves as good people, regardless of being Republican or regardless of having like white supremacist and misogynistic takes, will still go, that's fucked up. That's too much for me. And I think this could be another instance where it has happened, at least in the past, when they did this exact same thing to black people, when segregationists did this. Again, like I'm showing you, there's empirical evidence to showcase that like this was not viewed in a positive way by the broader majority of people living in Arkansas even. In the 1960s, the buses were funded by anonymous people donating to private segregationist groups which aimed to tell the North to put up or shut up, as one New Orleans leader said. DeSantis has now said how the flights he arranged to Martha's Vineyard were funded, but Texas Governor Greg Abbott has used state resources and donations for the buses, and both have been eager to take credit. They're doing the exact same thing that white supremacist segregationists did in the 60s, and they're using state funds to do it. And ultimately, I think that this has the capacity to fucking backfire. As you guys know, I covered this already, and there's a video of it already on my YouTube page if you want more details. But Greg Abbott has been shipping migrants, asylum seekers, migrants in general, to blue states for a while now. He's been busing them. On top of that, Ron DeSantis, who very famously and very classically loves getting in on like a good media, like a good rowdy media cycle by making a name for himself all the time. And he's done this time and time again, has decided to join in on the fun where he took some 50 Venezuelan migrants from Texas and flew them out to Martha's Vineyard. Now, Martha's Vineyard is a fucking island. It's not like, it doesn't have the capabilities of like dealing with a steady flow of migrants, obviously. But they could do that if they were told ahead of time, which of course Ron DeSantis didn't do that because his goal was not to actually he did not have the best interest of the migrants at heart. He just wanted to use them as a political pawn. So that's precisely what they did. Yeah, the permanent population of like 15K people there, it's tiny. Exactly. And they're using taxpayer dollars, too, to be able to do this. Wildly funny that DeSantis flew migrants to Martha's Vineyard to serve as a paragon of liberal elite hypocrisy, but did not consider that almost no community would be as capable and inclined to take great care of their migrants than publicize the hell out of their own virtuousness. This is not a hit at the Martha's Vineyard residents. I'm very grateful for what they're doing. It's just a fact. Yeah, exactly. So there were a couple L's there. The number one L was that, rich liberals love doing shit like this. They love looking good. They love looking like they're better people than Republicans. And also on top of that, not everyone is a fucking piece of shit, Ron. So now Ron DeSantis looks like a fucking asshole because he is an asshole. And so does Greg Abbott. So it's like kind of blowing up in his face. Let's take a look, though. This is what the White House said. Oh, I hope he goes to jail for this.
Fired back at the Republican governors of Florida and Texas, accusing them of playing politics with human beings after they sent buses and planes full of migrants to Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. Senior White House correspondent.
It looks good to Republicans, no? No, it doesn't. Which is why they're desperately trying to cut. Okay. You know what I'm watching right now? I'm watching Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott doing human trafficking children, which is illegal for those of you who don't know, for just a fuck you and a haha, look at this politics thing. And I'm watching it blow up in their fucking faces because the migrants are actually getting taken care of by the blue states. Because they're using it partially because they're like nicer and also partially because they want the good PR as well. So it's blowing up in their fucking faces, which is why they're trying to desperately turn this into something it's not. That's why they sent in Fox News reporters to Kamala Harris's house and not immigration lawyers. The only people that were informed about this shipment, like we're talking about migrants, like human beings, like they're fucking baggage, right? But these guys sent Venezuelan migrants under false pretenses to different fucking states, telling them that there's housing and adequate, jobs and shit available, specifically lying to them. And there are children involved in it as well. And they expected people to like turn them away, I guess, or not be able to deal with it. And they did it in the worst possible way as well. They didn't inform a single fucking state authority. They didn't tell anyone that these migrants were coming. And they didn't send them to an appropriate like place that could house them. They sent them to like Kamala Harris's house. Okay, or they sent them to an open lot. And like these guys can't even speak fucking English. They are legally within their rights to seek asylum, but they just got dumped in the middle of nowhere. They basically invented a fake caravan, right? And they did this with taxpayer dollars. And make no mistake, I mean, they only informed Fox News reporters that this was happening. They didn't tell anyone to help out the processing of all these people. They didn't like inform the state authorities so there was like adequate shelter readily available. And guess what? It didn't fucking work because they still found a way. People in Martha's Vineyard still immediately were like, okay, we'll figure it out. And they are providing housing for these people. They're providing methods of doing their paperwork. Like they're giving them food. And he fucking starved them out too. That was another thing. Not to mention lying about their addresses on the immigration papers. Shouldn't that be fucking illegal too? Yeah, that's another thing. So it is insanely illegal. It's kidnapping. It's human trafficking. It's just straight up illegal. But as I talked about yesterday, like people don't really care about it because it's happening to migrants. And Americans do not have the capacity to understand that migrants are human fucking beings. But here is the immigration attorney, Rachel Self, at St. Anthony's Church at Martha's Vineyard. And after interviewing the Venezuelan migrants about how they got here, she calls the entire ordeal kidnapping.
Especially simple map of Martha's Vineyard and the United States, and a brief brochure containing snippets from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website and instructions to change their address with USCIS when they relocated. This is especially troubling as anyone with even the most basic understanding of the immigration proceedings knows that USCIS was not the agency with whom the migrants would have to record their addresses and has nothing to do with their cases in any way. It is
I don't know about trafficking, but definitely kidnapping. Bro, it is 100% trafficking. What the fuck do you mean?
Clear that this was an intentional attempt to ensure that these migrants were removed in absentia when they failed to change their address with the proper agency. This was a purposeful derailment designed to prevent people from complying with federal immigration.
It's so bad that the founder of the Venezuelan group in Orlando is now against Marco, a 180 flip. At a press conference in Orlando condemning DeSantis' treatment of migrants, William Diaz, founder of Casa de Venezuela, shows this picture he took with Marco Rubio in the past and says Rubio has now abandoned the Venezuelan community. Yeah, Florida. Additionally, ironic that Ron DeSantis did this, and he fucking called it and said that, there are greener pastures in Massachusetts and other places for you, implying that there is no green pasture in fucking Florida, which is literally like against the state building project of Florida. Florida has always been a safe haven for every fucking anti-communist migrant, dude. What do you mean? You, one, called your fucking state dog shit, which is hilarious. I agree. And two, you did this in the state that has the most fucking anti-communist Cuban and Venezuelan migrant population. You do this from Alabama, then, maybe the Purdue Chicken Factory is going to get mad at you because you took away their steady, fresh pool of labor, right? But overall, the people of Alabama are going to be like, yeah, that's right, whatever, roll tide, baby. You did this from the heart of people that literally, the people that vote for you are people that look like that have that same fucking background, you idiot. I mean, I cannot comprehend a dumber fucking decision here. Like, it is, no matter how Fox News tries to flip this and act like, and remember, we watched it yesterday. Fox News was there on site, and they were like, why is there no immigration lawyers here? Oh, and they came to Kamala Harris's house. Ha, ha, ha. And it's like, dude, these are human beings that you're fucking with. Like, that is insanely cruel. And you personally made it so that it was as difficult as possible for them to, like, actually make this transition. You kidnap people, and you ship them. You traffic them under false pretenses to a different fucking state. And now you're trying to make it seem like this was the Democrats' fault. Except it's your fucking fault through and through. And the Democrats are actually picking up the fucking slack here. And not only that, But it's, again, I think that this is another opportunity for the this is another situation where the Republicans overextended. Okay, just like with the abortion thing. When Republicans act out on their genuine policy attitudes, their genuine policy provisions, when they act out on their cruel and inhumane desires, most Americans are going to go, that's kind of wild that you're doing that. It is, of course, hilariously unchristian-like, right? Obviously. So it is deeply, deeply hypocritical from that front too. But it's also, from an optics point of view, because that's all motherfuckers care about, from an optics point of view, it's also hilariously bad. Most people in general see themselves as empathetic, right? Like, if there was someone hungry, they would want to feed them. Yes.
The planes. They were told they arrived last night, make it clear that they were lied to again.
My call was this was going to fucking backfire, and a lot of you in the chat yesterday said, no shot, no shot. That's not true. You're wrong. You're naive. No, motherfucker, I'm not naive. I'm pretty realistic about this sort of stuff. They didn't take like rugged, criminal-looking people. They took literally anti-communist refugees escaping the treacherous, scary Maduro regime that makes up a pretty significant proportion of the fucking DeSantis right-wing voter base. There's babies involved. There's little fucking children looking cute. They put microphones in their fucking faces. Of course that's going to look bad. It goes against the propaganda the Republicans cut nonstop. You can't empathize with these people. You can never show them in a positive light. You can never show their humanity. And they fucking failed. They did show their humanity.
Again and again. And fraudulently induced to board.
The fuck?
Arrived last night, make it clear that they were lied to again and again, and fraudulently induced to board the planes. They were told there was a surprise present for them, and that there would be jobs and housing awaiting for them when they...
Your point yesterday that Fox News viewers have humanity was wrong? No, man. Every American fucking fancies themselves to be a good person at the end of the day. And there are certain realities that they see right in front of their eyes where it's like it's almost impossible for them to not recognize this. When you have children coming off that bus, when you don't have like fucking rugged-looking, scary-looking black guys from Haiti, for example, right? And they're wearing like fake Imperial Armani shirts or whatever, which is what you normally get from agitprop, right-wing agitprop, on Tucker Carlson's broadcast usually. When you actually have like little kids in Marvel pajamas saying like, yay, I'm here. I thought that, we were going to have a better future here. All of a sudden, no fucking psychopath, unless they're like severely white supremacist, okay? A lot of white supremacist Americans are not like Klan level white supremacists. You don't understand that. They're going to look at that and go, well, this seems kind of fucked up a little bit. Also, it's really funny that people were writing this off as ultra-leftos expressing skepticism that kind of polarized black and white morality and misunderstanding of pathos peak rad-lib behavior. Yeah, people fail to comprehend, though, that like even racist motherfuckers don't want to be called racist. They understand that white supremacy and racism is wrong. They might be socially conditioned into believing in it. And there are plenty of people who are still going to say, nah, it's a good thing that they did that. I'm telling you, I know that. I get it. There are plenty of people probably in your life that is like currently working extra hard to do mental gymnastics to make sure that this move actually looks good and looks adequate, right? Like I'm sure that is a thing that's happening. But we're talking about the broad majority of Republicans, right? There are more people than just like your mom and dad that is brain broken by fucking watching Fox News every goddamn night. And to a broad majority of people, this is going to look like a bunch of people were tricked. And now the Democrats are actually taking care of them. These liberal elites are actually taking care of them. Sorry, I'm just like having a fucking hard time today with my brain. All right, let's just continue.
They arrived. This was obviously a sadistic lie. Not only did those responsible for this stunt know that there was no housing and no employment awaiting the migrants, they also very intentionally chose not to call ahead to any single office authority on Martha's Vineyard so that even the most basic human needs arrangements could be made, ensuring that no help awaited the migrants at all was the entire point. They were provided with a cartoonishly simple map of Martha's Vineyard and the United States, and a brief brochure containing snippets from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website and instructions to change their address with USCIS when they relocated. This is especially troubling as anyone with even the most basic understanding of the immigration proceedings knows that USCIS was not the agency with whom the migrants would have to record their addresses and has nothing to do with their case.
They made it purposely difficult for them to like actually go through the proper protocols. It's like additionally disgusting.
In any way. It is clear that this was an intentional attempt to ensure that these migrants were removed in absentia when they failed to change their address with the proper agency. This was a purposeful derailment designed to prevent people from complying with federal immigration policies. This is problematic because the state should not be interfering with federal immigration policy. Before they boarded the planes, the migrants were processed by agents of the Department of Homeland Security, who listed falsified addresses on the migrants' paperwork. Agents apparently chose random homeless shelters all across the country, from Washington to Florida, to list the migrants' mailing addresses, even when told by the migrants that they had no address in the U.S. According to the paperwork provided to them, the migrants are required to check in with ICE office nearest to the fake address chosen for them by DHS or be permanently removed from the United States, with some required to check in as early as this coming Monday. It could not be clearer that this is an attempt to ensure that these people are ordered removed, even as they try as hard as they can to comply with the instructions provided to them. There is no other reason to list as someone's mailing address a homeless shelter in Tacoma, Washington, when they ship him to Massachusetts. It is sickeningly cruel, throwing obstacles in the way of people fleeing violence and oppression, some of whom walked through 10 countries in the hopes of finding safety. It is shameful and inhuman. Many of these victims were deprived of medical care despite clear existing injuries. These are human beings.
They didn't give them food, bro. They fucking starved them out. They reached new levels of mania, man. New levels of cruelty. I swear to God.
Who were deprived of basic human rights. To the people who find themselves, these wonderful people who find themselves plane wrecked on our island, I have a message for all of them. You are not alone. We have your backs. We are proud to be here for you. And we've got you. If the intention of those who perpetrated this horrendous act was to create a crisis, you have failed. Their demeanor is kind, their demeanor is grateful, and their demeanor is just that they want to be doing everything right. Their biggest concern today is that many of them have dates to appear in San Antonio Monday morning, Tacoma.
Yeah, that's the worst part about this is that, like, I mean, obviously, like, shipping them off to a totally random area is, like, fucked up in and of itself. But they did it in such a way that they can't even make their own fucking court dates. They purposely misfiled their details so that, like, the people that they shipped off from Texas, not even Florida, by the way, Ron DeSantis took 50 Venezuelan migrants from Texas and shipped them to Martha's Vineyard, flew them out to Martha's Vineyard, and purposely misfiled their shit so that they couldn't even figure out when their next court date is and make it to their next court date. Because remember, it's like 98% that actually make it to their court dates. 98% of asylum seekers make it to their fucking court date. Remember how Donald Trump used to say, oh, they don't do it. They don't do it. They don't come back to their court dates, folks. And if they do, and then he changed it because people were like, well, guess what? That's actually not true. Everyone actually appears on their fucking court dates because it's a legal process, it's a legal proceeding, and they want to like actually be in the country, okay? Then he started saying, well, the ones that do are stupid. He said they're not smart if they're coming back to their court dates. And that's what this is. Like, they're literally purposely trying to fuck up the numbers because the numbers already do not suit their agenda. Yeah, the migrants weren't even from Florida, by the way. Yes, Ron DeSantis took migrants from San Antonio, from Texas, and shipped them to Martha's Vineyard. And he paid $12 million to do so. $12 million of Florida state funds to fucking fly Venezuelans misfiled their fucking claims and shipped them with no fucking paperwork and no take ahead of time, no information ahead of time to the proper authorities. Shipped them to Martha's Vineyard on purpose. If there was an adequate government, a real government that actually does government shit, Ron DeSantis would be in jail right now. He'd be in the court proceedings would have started already.
Washington, Monday morning. Washington, D.C., Monday morning. You tell me how that's possible.
We will be exploring all civil and criminal legal options to hold the perpetrators accountable and to prevent this injustice from repeating itself.
It's just like, I don't even know what to say. Like, but at least like some of the Venezuelan voters, which are right-wing voters overall, have pushed back on Ron DeSantis. But here, this specific segment of the government money that was seemingly spent making it reality 2 months later could use a lot more scrutiny. Anyway, when the GOP's do depraved stuff, it's worth looking for the Fox host who suggested it. This is Tucker Carlson on July 26th.
It's a natural. Joe Biden took 70% of the vote on that small Massachusetts island. Over the past 4 years, according to FEC data, 92% of all donations from its biggest town, Edgartown, Massachusetts, went to the Democratic Party. So you probably imagine Edgartown is pretty diverse. I mean, the Obamas lived on the island, right? No. In fact, we checked at last count, Edgartown is 95.7% white. What century is this? As of 2019, only 3% of all people, all residents in Edgartown were born outside of this country. So do the math. That's 17 people total. That's effectively zero diversity, which means zero strength. They are begging for more diversity. Why not send migrants there in huge numbers? Let's start with 300,000 and move up from there. As the island gets stronger, more.
And now more stuff like this is going to come out. The Daily Beast reports a migrant claims to have been paid $200 cash by a mysterious woman named Perla to recruit people from a Texas migrant resource center to board a plane to Martha's Vineyard. What DeSantis and the others involved in this scheme did was unconscionable. It makes me sick. Yeah. How do you spend $12 million shipping human beings across the country without setting aside at least 5 to avoid the top of the hour ad break? Fuck you. God damn it, dude. Oh, no. It was $600K, not 12 mil. Okay, so the $12 million fund is the overall fund, and they used $600,000 so far. Yeah, he has an overall $12 million fund. Here it is.
But what we found is we haven't seen any major movements of people into Florida like big caravans. The only caravans we saw were people that had H-2A visas. Well, those are obviously legal workers. So we've interdicted people on a onesie, twosie basis. And we said, okay, so we've had people in Texas for months trying to figure out how are these people getting into Florida?
Dog, you literally fucking went into Texas because you were so desperate. You were so fucking desperate to get in on the action that you couldn't even fucking figure out migrants coming into Florida. So you went into Texas to own the Venezuelan refugees there. That's another crazy component of this. Like, they're not even fucking getting people from Florida. He went into Texas to look for new people that he could ship off.
What's the movement? And the reality is 40% of them say they want to go to Florida. And so that's a lot. I mean, when you talk about all those people, but the problem is...
Yeah, I wonder why 40% of the Venezuelan migrants in Texas want to go to Florida. I wonder if, let me think. I wonder if like immediate family members that also have taken advantage of the visa allowances and the temporary protected status that they have until 2024, and immediate family members that live in your fucking state that literally vote for you, dickhead. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Perhaps. Ron won't answer questions, so we looked ourselves. Florida paid Vertol Systems $615,000 on September 8th out of the $12 million deportation fund. So Floridians paid $12,300 for each refugee DeSantis trafficked for his own political purposes. More to come. Oh my fucking God. That's incredible, dude. I mean, he just, like, this is his base. What is he doing? This is like immediate family members of his fucking base that he's doing this to. Like, it is such a misstep on every front.
Yes. So the governor of California sent a letter to the Department of Justice saying you need to prosecute Texas and Florida governors. And all I can say is I think his hair gel is interfering with his brain function.
I fucking hate this country so much, dude. I despise these motherfuckers, dude. I swear to God.
Thanks, guys.
Also, what an incredible fucking counter, dude. I mean, he just did not even address anything that Gavin Newsom said about the criminality of the situation, and instead was just like, he has hair gel. And then all the fucking hogs and hogalinas in the room going, oh, that's so good. That's so fucking good, man. You fucking got it. Please, please, please throw this motherfucker in jail. Please. That'd be so sweet.
Is if they're coming in through with like 3 people in a car and they go through, it's hard for us to know because they're just coming into the state like any other car. So if there's not a big movement. So they've been in Texas identifying people that are trying to come to Florida and then offering them free transportation to sanctuary jurisdictions. And so they went from Texas to Florida to Martha's Vineyard with a flight. There's also going to be buses, and there will likely be more flights. But I'll tell you this, the legislature gave me $12 million. We're going to spend every penny of that to make sure that we're protecting the people of the state of Florida.
Yeah, protecting them from Venezuelan migrants escaping communism, by the way. Remember, because, like, obviously I don't give a shit about the whole, like, escaping communism narrative. But, like, try to comprehend that, like, the people that he's talking about are his voters, his base of support, and people that have, like, America has historically offered lenient temporary protection status to. They have it until 2024. And Florida has been built on this principle, like Cubans and Venezuelans especially. So him shitting on this idea is kind of funny because, like, no matter how much cognitive dissonance dumbass fucking older reactionary Cubans have towards other migrants, because they were afforded an incredible asylum opportunity, right? It's going to be pretty fucking hard for them not to comprehend that these are literally other Venezuelans. You know what I mean? Like, that's your cousin. That's your family members. That's people that look like you. That's people that are coming from the same background as you. It's going to be hard for Venezuelans not to realize, like, oh shit, Venezuelans in Florida, not to be like, that's kind of fucked up, as I was saying. And it turns out they are actually pushing back a little bit on this. But yes, Venezuelans have temporary protected status from Venezuela because, you know, we hate Maduro. Remember, it's bipartisan. The only people ever afforded the wet foot, dry foot policy hate other immigrants. Cubans are the most fucked immigrant group. I mean, yes, Cuban immigrants and Venezuelan immigrants have a different status, but especially Cuban immigrants have a different status in the state of Florida, where they were afforded complete asylum and naturalization opportunities. And for that reason, they recognize that difference in treatment and pretty much overlook the difference in treatment when they're shitting on other migrants coming in. This GOP Jesus ad will never age out. What is this?
To you, whoever welcomes one of these little ones in my name might be letting in a murderer or a drug. Let's get her to a detention center, you know, so we can figure out what's going on.
I mean, I do love right-wing Jesus. Like, supply side Jesus is like a pretty funny fucking meme. The idea that, like, sorry, as a matter of fact, I will not be healing the lepers today because it doesn't seem like you had Jesus coverage. There's, like, funnier avenues to hit here, but, you know, ultimately you get the point, is that the you know, Jesus Christ was a mythical figure that was a communist in every sense of the fucking word, but Republicans who draped themselves in the doctrines of Christianity preach the prosperity gospel, which is literally antithetical to the lessons within the Bible. Like, you can say the Bible has passages that people have used to justify slavery. You can say the Bible has passages that can be used for abolition, right? And have been historically used for abolitionist principles. Okay, you can talk about liberation theology, but if there's one clear through line within the Bible, it is that Jesus is a good person, right? And good people are, no matter how much fucking capital should I tell you that is wrong, good people are still aligned with socialist principles of charity, talking about, how hard it is for a rich man to get to the, go through the fucking doors of heaven. You can try to extrapolate whatever information you want to, but overall, what Jesus was doing was pretty fucking leftist, dude.
Mary Bruce starts us off. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. This is an audacious stunt. Republican governors using thousands of migrants searching for a better life to make a political point about immigration.
I can't even fucking get over this, dude. I mean, this is literally the most anti-Christian thing you could do right here.
Attempt to up the pressure on Democrats in the White House and highlighting what is a very serious issue. And this morning, the president is now responding, defending his policies and calling this Republican tactic reckless and un-American. Overnight, President Biden taking on Republican governors, accusing them of using human beings as political pawns.
Republicans are playing politics with human beings, using them as props. What they're doing is simply wrong.
Local officials say they had no idea they were coming, but DeSantis made sure cameras captured it all.
The minute even a small fraction of what those border towns deal with every day is brought to their front door, they all of a sudden go berserk.
But on the ground, officials say they raced to provide help and housing.
The immigrants that arrived here were not met with chaos. They've been met with compassion.
For months, Republican governors have been sending migrants to Democratic states to try and make a political point. New York City receiving nearly 12,000 migrants. Its mayor says the city is nearing its breaking point.
We need help. We have not been ashamed to say that. We need help.
The Republican governors say the administration's process is broken and argue their tactic is giving the rest of the country a much-needed dose of reality. There has been a surge in border crossings, a record 1.8 million apprehensions since October.
Is it me or is this just some kind of Nazi shit? I mean, there is a historical precedent of white supremacists doing this. Yes, in the 60s and 50s. They did this to black people in the southern states. I mean, this has been happening for a long time. Even, this every period of American history has its own version of white supremacist shit, like all the way from internment camps, the Bracero program that specifically targeted Hispanic migrant workers, the internment camps for the Japanese, and also black people in general were shipped out from southern states to northern states. This has always been a part of, American white supremacist history. So I don't even know where the fuck to start and where the fuck to end. A trail of tears for the indigenous population. Like, I don't even know. Is there a period in American history where this hasn't happened to to whatever fucking a group of the population that the dominant white supremacist forces considered to be the underclass or not human?
With about half of those migrants being released in the U.S., cities like El Paso, Texas, have hit a crisis point. ABC's Maria Villarreal seeing it firsthand.
El Paso is one of the border cities that's getting hit really hard right now. We just confirmed with the city that Border Patrol has about 1,300 encounters every day. And a lot of those people end up right here in the streets, downtown area of El Paso. You can see a lot of people are starting to drop off food and drinks here, as well as clothing for migrants that are waiting to get on buses to then head north.
We pressed the White House.
And do you feel that the situation at the border is under control? Are you doing enough?
We are fixing a broken system. It is not like turning the light switch on. It is going to take some time.
Now, the White House says the Trump administration is responsible for that broken system, and they do admit there is a lot more work that can be done here. But the president says that Republicans have shown no interest in actually solving the immigration problem through legislation. George, it's one of the many reasons the president is saying that the upcoming midterm elections are so critical.
Right, and hard to imagine anything happening before those elections.
By the way, liberal media is unironically framing this in the most right-wing way possible, which is really fucked up. I mean, that is kind of fucked up. That they're like, no, there is a crisis in El Paso, and instead of showcasing the humanity of those people that are going through the crisis, they're talking about them like they're fucking numbers. There is a solution to this, okay? And the solution is providing these people with adequate fucking housing and job opportunities.